Well, hello. Welcome to another episode of Riding Tandem. We're trying something new today by both being in the studio. So if you are watching the podcast, hopefully you get to see both of us. That's our goal, at least. So I think we got the tech figured out.
The test sounded okay.
Yep, sound okay. So we're going to dive in here. We wanted to talk a little bit, since we're at the beginning of a new year, headed into a new year, beginning of the new year, about strategy and thinking through strategies for your businesses. And specifically, though we can, of course, deviate off here like we do, we do a marketing and communication roadmap strategy session. And we've had a lot of people have questions about that and like, how do I do that? If I want to do my own for myself, what does it look like if we work with you? And so we wanted to dive into that a little bit today.
I think it's great timing with the new year because people really kind of jump all in and are ready to take things on. So
yeah. And I think that's one of the things about the New Year's. They set the goals and they plan ahead and everything, but it can also feel overwhelming to try to put strategies together for your business. And so that's where we come in, is just trying to help demystify some of that, and what the podcast is really about too, helping people find good strategies.
For sure.
So I guess first things first is like, why do people need a strategy at all? Whether they're coming up with their own, hiring somebody to help for their marketing and communications.
I think it's great for somebody like me who can chase shiny things to just kind of keep somebody on track and not go over here and then over here and be like, wait, what am I even doing here?
Which is like every entrepreneur on the planet, I think. Yeah. That's like part of why you get into business. And I remember, and still do sometimes feel like I'm hopping from thing to thing. Like, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. This is a great idea. And that can actually be frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's frustrating for your business, whether you're maybe thinking through different product offerings or services, but then you add on the layer on top of that of, how do I market these? And especially, I think it's easy to get like too close to it.
I think we also like to we like that, like different stuff and being able to like control a little bit more of what we do, but at the same time trying to take on too much at one time.
Yes.
You're just kind of floating along a little bit where you're not really like headed down a direction and down a path to like, really make something great.
That I think is really key, is making something great, which when I think about getting into starting business, it's because of making something great. Either you think you can make something greater than there's out there, or you have a great idea, or maybe your product is just like really fixing a problem.
Kind of filling a gap of something that's missing.
Yeah. And then I feel like it's easy to get scattered.
Yes, for sure.
And I think this is so candid to talk about too, because we were like thinking through our products and services and things we do. And we're like, maybe we should do the roadmap on ourselves.
Yes. Probably a little late in the game on that one. Should have started a little sooner.
Yeah. Practice what you preach kind of thing. Which, it's interesting. I think people think a lot about that. It's kind of like the plumber never takes care of their plumbing and things. And some of it is, I think, because you are doing some of it naturally when you're close to it.
Yes.
But it does still help to step back from it.
For sure. I think we had pieces like we have the email plan, but never really like compiled it all together for kind of a big picture, like 30-foot view.
Yeah. So, and that's really what a roadmap is when we think about them. When we first started this, which I guess we could talk a little bit about, like how we even ended up doing this, because that's a big question. And I think this comes up a lot for businesses where they're like, how did you end up in whatever it is you're doing? And so often business owners are like, well, I don't have a formal degree or education in it. And I think that's okay. And our story definitely centers around that too. But having that strategy does help bring all those pieces together, which is the important piece. So how about we talk a little bit about how we even started doing this?
Perfect.
Okay. I'm trying to think through here. So, because it kind of goes way back. When my ex-husband and I had the video production company, and you were there too, people kept coming to us all the time wanting video and photo work, because we did photography too. And then I can remember numerous times where people didn't use the video or the photos because they didn't actually have a plan for them.
They just would hear people say, hey, you need a video. You need this kind of video, and you need photos. But never like, oh, what am I actually going to do with this stuff?
And we started asking a lot of questions because it's frustrating, especially when you're in a creative field, to make creative and then not have it used. So fast forward, we started just kind of helping people figure out some strategies with their assets. And then when you and I started working together, I think it just carried over. I mean, you were doing a lot of commercial photography work.
I think probably like the real turning point for me was like, wow, a marketing agency had called and asked us to do photos for a hospital. And they wanted us, it was a recruitment campaign.
That's right.
And we had like a series of questions that we asked every client to see if they were a good fit or not. And they couldn't answer really any of the 8 questions, I don't think, on like, what are you going to do with these photos? Well, what is the end use? I don't know. I just know we need photos. Yeah. Well, do you have plans like you're going to show an empty park but want people to come live in this town with an empty park and empty streets and no people anywhere? So it was kind of like, you're the marketing agency and you're not really thinking about any of these things that we think about every day with our photos and clients and the end use and all of those things. So I think that was, to me, like, yeah, we can do this.
Yeah. And I remember you having that conversation and then chatting about it afterwards. It was really eye-opening how so often we lead with the creative first. And I think it's because it's just fun, maybe. It's visual, it's tangible.
Yeah.
I also think people see these like slick ad campaigns out there by really big brands and they're like, oh, in order to be legit, I need to have like flashy or really branded cool stuff. And being in photography, you want to make cool stuff.
Yeah. There were a lot of people we sent away too. Like, well, you're not quite ready for this. So go work on XYZ while you do this. Like, we'd love to take your money, but you're not there yet. Like, you need to work on these things, the foundation first, before you can really spend thousands of dollars on a pretty video or photos.
I'm glad you pointed that out because a lot of times, well, I shouldn't say a lot. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of 50-50. Clients we work with are often on a limited budget. They're either getting started or they're just pulling marketing funds for the first time ever. They've not really done that before. And so I like that you pointed it out because there have been times where they're like, hey, I want this. And we have said, you really need to spend your money over here first, or it's just not going to get you the bang for the buck. And I think that's kind of like sort of the beginnings. We just started thinking like, we really do think strategically and can help our clients and partners think strategically. So then fast forward, we started thinking up this kind of idea of doing like consulting or a marketing session. And I think we went through a couple iterations of what we were calling it. We talked about blueprints at one point and what were we going to call this thing? And then we pitched it for the first time.
I'm trying to remember who we even pitched it to for the first time. What kind of client that was?
Financial coach.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we hadn't really done this before. So we're like, what do we charge? And I think we said like $300 or something.
It was $300, yeah.
So just so you know, everyone out there, I mean, this is like something that comes up on the podcast a lot. How do I price my stuff? We for sure underpriced it, but we knew when we priced it that we would raise it as we
I think we did like every model. 3 or every 5. We're like, we'll raise it every, take the feedback that people are giving us, make changes along the way that we felt like we needed to make.
Yeah. Which I do think is a good pricing model. If people are not sure what to do, pick a price you feel comfortable saying out loud and then practice saying it. Sell it 3 times or 5.
I can't remember what it was. Yeah.
And then once you've sold it easily, then raise the price and do it 3 more times and then just keep going from there. Kind of find your ceiling. So that was one of our first times we pitched it. And then we started putting these sessions together, and they're for-profits and nonprofits, can work either way. And what else?
In the beginning, we informally did it for a few clients where
that's right.
We just kind of, they needed help and we were like, here we are.
We did a lot of that during COVID.
That was probably the big turning point.
I would say so. That's a good point. Because it kind of forced us to
step onto the strategy and listen to the deliverables.
Well, everyone needed a strategy, and you really couldn't be shooting a whole lot or making these creative assets that involve people being together. And a lot of people didn't have a strategy for taking their brick and mortar online.
For sure. That was a big piece.
So we started shaping these and putting them together, and now they have shaped over the years into a really nice offering. It's one of the ones that we like the best that we do here, because you really do see like the needle move for people.
For sure.
Which I think is huge. So I thought maybe we could walk everyone through one, if they want to do their own session, but just a little bit of how our sessions work.
We should have printed the agenda, but I think we've got it.
I think we've got it. I think we have it. It has taken a little bit to get it down to like more of a science and a flow, but I really like what we have now.
Yeah, I think it goes really well. And it works well for the client to break it up the way it is, and well for us and our brains.
So a lot of what we do within a strategy session is, I mean, I think you have to talk first about what are you doing already, and name the elephants in the room too of this is working, this is not working. And so just making a simple list. So if you're doing it on your own, I think you just make a list. It helps to have somebody guide you, but if you're just like, hey, I'm just going to give this a try, just get a list down of like, this works, this doesn't work. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what's happening with it. But we break ours up into 2 sessions. So we do one session where we really unpack all of the things. We do a lot of discovery about audiences, a little bit about voice, how you want to be perceived, how things are going right now.
We dive into uniques, like what do you offer that no one else does? What makes you stand out?
And a lot of times people have a hard time with that because they're so close to it.
Yeah.
But we'll get like writing and putting things up, and I feel like for us, we like start to see it right away.
Yeah. You can kind of like, you see it up on the board, like, oh, those are your uniques.
Yeah.
Like, those make you stand out.
Right. And I think it surprises people a lot what pops out as their uniques. So often people will think that it's like some aspect of their service or some feature of their product, and it very rarely is.
I think they're surprised when they're like, well, that's just who I am. That's just what I do. Well, and then having someone step back and say like, well, not everybody thinks like that, does those things. So having an outside voice say, hey, this is really cool, guys. Like, you should be talking about this.
Like super magical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there have been a number of those. Also, then we will go through audiences, which I think is another big discovery for a lot of people, where sometimes you have the top level audience, but then as you really start drilling down into breaking those top level audiences down, and that I think is where a lot of the gold is. Who are you talking to? When you know who you're talking to, you can be really specific then.
It makes it a lot easier to your messaging, your goal, like all of it just kind of can come together when you can visualize, especially for a visual person, like visualize the person that you're talking to.
And then you can let some things go.
Yeah.
That I think is a huge, like when we think about what is unique with our sessions, I think a piece of it is that we help people let things go and not add more on.
A little more permission giving and prioritization to say like, maybe you want that audience in 10 years or 5 years, but let's stop for a second.
Yes. You don't have to do everything all at once. And that I would say is one of the surprises that people often find within our sessions, where they're like, I was worried about leaving kind of overwhelmed, but you helped me realize I don't have to be on every social platform, or some of the ones I'm on just aren't a good fit for this season. So I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
And that's important. Especially as you're thinking about New Year's, right? Where you're like adding on, like, let's add this on and this on and this on. It's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe the thing that serves you the best is actually to let some of the things go. And so then that's one of the things within our approach. We also do a phased approach. And then that way you can work through our checklist. So the second part, we do all this unpacking and discovering. It's very interactive, but it's also highly involved. Like you really have to kind of roll up your sleeves and dig in. So it takes commitment from people.
And before we jump into the second part, we talk a lot about roadblocks and barriers and what could get in people's way, and how to plan for that, and how can we know the roadblocks and barriers before we set the map up for them. Mm-hmm. How do we know that? And how can we accommodate for like, they may hate writing. Like, yes. Okay, so let's not focus on that, or let's wait till they have a little more income so they can sub that
hire that out.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And one of my favorite pieces. So I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah. We call it a roadblock busting statements where we come up with those. So there again, like if you're trying to figure some of this out on your own, it's making that list of things that are working, things that aren't working, things that you love, things that you hate, like recognizing those, getting to know your audience, super huge, kind of auditing through what's going on. And then of course, we also do goals. a dream piece, right? Mm-hmm. The goals and the dream piece. And the goals piece is really important. I think so many people, they don't realize how much we're going to dig into their business or their organization. Like, if you're a nonprofit, what's your strategic plan say? What are you trying to roll up into as a business and a nonprofit too? Like, what are the numbers?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Because, for example, marketing and communicating for, let's say, bringing on 100 new clients is totally different than I only need 12. And those at scale look very different.
We dive a lot into like, what do you want like now? What do you want in 3 years? What do you want in 5, 10 years? And really kind of help people. Like they may also have it up here, but they might not have it like actually documented out to keep them on track.
That is a good point, as well as a lot of times our clients need it documented out either for a board, for a team, and that could be a large team or a small team, or just for themselves so that they can come back to it and remember what they wanted to hold themselves accountable and not get bogged down in all the rest. Mm-hmm. So having it documented is huge. That being said, we don't like to document it to death. It's very simple when we document it out.
Yeah.
So that's the second part of our sessions. Our team, after we do the first half, and we look at all the dreams and goals, we look at what's working, not working, what we love, what we hate, what the audiences are, we come up with a plan then. And it's been collaborative because in that first session, we're like gathering, and the client we're talking with is like giving a lot of input. So it's not like we're just creating something out of the blue and then handing it to them, but we make a checklist. We put a portal together online with all of our tools. We have a lot of cool tools to help our clients. And then we also put together a slide deck because sometimes they just need that like top level.
And it's nice for if they are a nonprofit to be able to take that slide deck to their board.
Huge.
Or to anyone they're pitching things to, like, this is our plan.
Mm-hmm. So that is super helpful because you just need kind of the high level. Because we do this high level, but then the checklist gets super specific.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's in a phased approach too. So I like the piece of it. Like if you only have an hour, like you can see kind of like, okay, I can knock off X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to say, I'm going to block 4 hours, then you can maybe tackle a bigger to do.
Yeah.
And it makes it really easy to hand off to somebody.
Yes.
Which is kind of nice. And so they're not sitting there like, and then you're going to go do this. Like they can just kind of hand it over, send it over, digital, whatever.
Yeah.
And say, get to work.
Yes. Which is great because a lot of our clients are working with, maybe they have an intern, maybe they have somebody who's doing some of the marketing, or a husband or wife. Yeah. That happens a lot. A partner of some kind who's getting involved. So to be able to reference the same checklist, and maybe you're picking it off together, or maybe you're looking through kind of by platform or channel. Maybe that's kind of your thing. So there's lots of ways you can kind of slice and dice it.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of cool tools on the portal that will also supplement and help that. So let's say part of your plan is to maybe identify a couple of your client personas. We have a checklist and a worksheet on how to do that breaks it down really easily. So it doesn't have to be
template links.
And Canva template links.
Because why not?
So those are really cool too. Yeah. There's some best practice guides. We do that for like Google Places, Google Business, best practice guides there. And they're very simple. They're not meant to be overwhelming.
Nope. Step by step on a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm. So then the second session, after we do a lot of brain work around that, we come back and we present those tools to our clients.
I think it's something that is a little bit probably different and that people don't expect is sometimes there's a good reads. Like if we're like talking and realize like, oh, hey, I think you'd really benefit from this book, or
yes,
we do a good read section, which are like good listens, good things that they could find interesting.
Sometimes too, because they are all handcrafted, though the process is nailed down and really well, they are like super unique. So yeah, the good reads, sometimes we'll put in cool tools.
Yep.
Like if they could benefit from a special kind of timer or maybe a special notebook. I know like you like your ADHD planner. I like a different type of planner. So as we get to know a client, if we have cool tools, like we're going to share that. It's going to be in there. And then sometimes connections.
Yeah, the community building piece, I think, especially if they're local, like just being able to connect people and having a place instead of just being like, oh yeah, you should meet this person. But there's actually like a list of like
people to meet or organizations they might want to check out, get involved in.
Networking groups or events that we've gone to that we've found like, okay, this would really go well for this client.
And I think what's awesome with that, and like some of the magic we bring to the table is that we've worked with so many different clients over the years in different capacities that we can bring a well-rounded, like we just know a lot of folks now. And we know a lot of folks who know a lot of folks.
Yeah.
So then making those connections is huge. And so sometimes a client does walk away with the checklist is meet these 5 people. That's not the whole checklist, but it's a piece of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a huge piece of it. Okay. What would you say, having done a number of these roadmaps, has been most like surprising either to you or you think clients have found most surprising?
I don't know if this is most surprising, but it's top of mind because it wasn't that long ago. I had a client thank me for introducing me to another person. I was like, I don't know why I can't remember why I introduced them. And he's like, at first I thought, what in the heck is she thinking? Like, she wants me to meet this guy? Like, this is weird. And they met and he was kind of at first like, and now they're like best friends doing work together and contracting different things off of each other. So I thought that was a little surprising. Yeah. It's such a big connection in his life. And then over here, I'm like, wait, what did I connect you guys?
Yeah.
I had to think back for a minute. So
that is a piece too, because you and I work on these together. You bring I feel like your connections piece to the table really well and like lean in there and just very much out of the box thinking. Like when we're working together on these sessions, I tend to kind of do a little of the upfront facilitating. You, Machaela, are like taking tons of notes, asking, questions that help dig in quite a bit.
Sometimes I'm even like making a little like to-dos list for them during the moment. Cause otherwise I'm like, wait, if I don't do it now, I'm going to forget. Like this is like, so it does work well for like the brainstorming piece.
Yes.
If I have to facilitate, I have to really concentrate.
Yeah.
And keep my brainstorming head like down a little bit.
Right. Which is good because we want all of that. I mean, that's really the service and the piece that we offer is that we are different brains thinking in different ways. So we're both very strategic, but I'm really high strategy. So I'm usually thinking through like, okay, so they want these numbers and there's this thing and then how would that work? And then you're going to connect this and then this probably makes sense first, then this, then this. And then I feel like you layer in, like we're able to co-sign on a lot of that. And then you really layer in the unique ways they might go about unpacking that strategy.
I think like too, like she'll lock herself in a room. We'll meet, go over everything, kind of like just kind of get everything like we're thinking about what they should do out on the table, the whiteboard. And then Vivian locks herself in a room. Then she brings it back to me. And then I kind of go through it, move some things around a little bit sometimes and say, well, don't you remember they said that they don't like, they don't work well in the mornings. Like, let's make sure we put afternoon thing, like that kind of just random weird things that strategies, like to just kind of merge it all together.
And you really need both. And that's, a lot of the clients we work with, the thing they say is they feel alone on an island. And that may be because they literally are not necessarily alone on an island, but they are alone. They might be a solo, business owner. Or it might be they're on a team, but they're the only one who really like operates in their role or capacity. Or they might be the owner, which just feels kind of lonely sometimes.
Yeah.
So
that brings up I think a good point too. So if it is a bigger team, it wouldn't just be the marketing person or the person who wears that hat coming in. It would be key leadership too, because we've seen too many times where they're ready to go in this way. And then it's like they come in and it's all like, no, no, we're going this way. So to really like, not just that department's goals, but the entire organization's goals, and to get that all mapped out so that everyone fully understands the clear picture.
I think somebody I knew called that the CEO seagull swoop. where the CEO comes in and is like dives in from up here and is like, oh, great. And then literally like poops all over everything and then flies out again. Yeah. It's a real thing.
It happens for sure.
It does happen. So that is a piece. Like you have to have the key decision makers in the room. And so whether you're working with us, that is a requirement. Like we reschedule. If so-and-so can't be there, like game over, we're rescheduling.
Yeah.
So if you're doing your own, you just want to think about that too. Like who's in the room while you're thinking through these things? And are you having conversations with the right people? Because it is important.
You don't want to spend all this time and all this effort and resources to have it just be like, well, actually, no, our service is going away tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. No, that is so true. A couple of things that I feel like land on the roadmap a lot would be your Google Places, your Google Business. I keep saying Google Places. It's Google Business.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Places.
It's changed a few times since.
Forgive me.
That makes us old.
Yes. I feel like that lands on a lot of roadmaps if they haven't leaned into that. And then an email list.
Yep. That's usually on most people's.
On a lot of people's. Yeah. Not everybody, but those end up being on a lot of folks' roadmaps.
We went down a rabbit hole there.
We did, yep.
But you didn't say what surprised you the most.
Oh, surprised me the most, right. Let's see. Okay, well, one of the things that surprised me the most was we did a roadmap session. This was one of our first ones, actually. And the roadblocks. And we'd gone over the roadblocks, and it was with a team. So there were a number of different roadblocks that came up. And that's important, too. Like, there's more than just your roadblocks to think about. But then I think it was during the second session, somebody pulled me aside and was like, hey, that roadblock thing you talked about, I used it with my spouse. And it really helped us work through like a marital thing.
Yeah.
And I was just surprised by that. I was like, it totally can work. It makes total sense why that exercise can work. But so you never know. If you do a roadmap session with us, you may end up with some marriage counseling advice too. Which that actually happened, not the roadblock piece, but let's talk about that a little bit. Sometimes I think what surprises our clients is that we don't talk and even it land on the roadmap, all things that are like social media or website or email or ad campaigns or, pay per click stuff or whatever. We've had a number of times where there's like an accountability piece layered in or a financial piece.
A culture
piece. Huge. Yep. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many people you market into your business if you don't have, say, a good customer service system in place. Or it doesn't matter how many people you market into your business if your internal marketing culture is poor.
Yeah.
And they have a poor experience.
I think another thing people have found surprising is we're not trying to sell them.
Yes.
On stuff. Like there might be somewhere like, no, you can do this yourself. Like these are all things. And there's some things that we're not going to do ever.
Right.
They're not our strongest suits. So I think that is kind of surprising. Like, wait, you are going to send me this direction for this person in this direction to go get leadership coaching. Well, yeah, that's what we think is best for you. Like we want to see you move the needle and we don't have to have our hands in all of it. Like here are the keys. Go unlock those doors.
It is really about people having the keys to their own business and organization, especially when it comes to their marketing communication. And it's not that you can't work with an agency, but we really have steered clear of, and we don't offer agency type creative services, but for a while we were doing a little and we steered away from it because we did feel like it takes the keys out of the owners, like the ownership, or maybe I would put it that way. It takes the ownership out of your story and how you tell your story. And it doesn't mean you can't use an agency. You just need to be sure it's a good one where you're like still the owner of your story.
A good fit.
Yeah, that good fit piece is super important. For sure. Is there a piece of the roadmap that you feel like people benefit from like the most?
Kind of depends on. I think with a team, I think you can get in all the thoughts out of everyone's head is probably super beneficial.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of time, I think, especially for some of the nonprofits to really sit down and deep dive into some of that stuff to where they're just
taking the time.
You're here. Yep.
I mean, just taking the time.
I worked in a nonprofit and I just basically got thrown in the next day, like, here you go. Here's your computer. Figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was extremely hard for me. I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing here?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that, not at that scale, but a lot of that happens. Mm-hmm. But everyone's just staying in their own lane and they're not really like communicating exactly where they're going and what they're doing.
Yeah, agreed. Being able to just take the quality time to get it out of your head and to speak the same language. Gosh, how many times have we seen that with teams where one person's saying Facebook and the other person's saying Facebook, but they mean completely different things about what their expectations were with Facebook, as a for example. I think that's huge, as well as like clarifying and defining for a lot of our clients, what is a win and what is just what we call vanity metrics. I think that comes up a ton, which is part of the let go piece. And I would say, I think that is probably one of the pieces that clients benefit from, is that it simplifies things, which simple, as we heard a woman say, and so I've like stolen it. I'm sure it's all over, but simple doesn't necessarily mean easy, but it does mean simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. So getting good definitions around why are we doing this? Why are we not doing this? And what are we really trying to accomplish with it? You checked me one time. I'm sure more than one time, but this one sticks out in my head. As we were thinking through our own marketing, and I was like, well, if we do, X number of these, a number of these, a number of these, then we'd be like, at this kind of revenue. And you're like, since when did we decide that we needed that much revenue? And I was like, oh, that's right. Yeah. But it's easy to get stuck in. And that was impacting like mental health and lifestyle. And like, do we really want to chase after that specifically? So that was a matter of like, you and I were it really. And Jenny, of course, but it's not like a huge team here. And yet we still weren't, with all of our conversations, really aligned until we sat down and had that conversation.
Yeah.
So that has been, I think, one of the things that is a huge benefit for our clients when they do a roadmap session. When we put these together, and it's about more than the marketing, do you ever feel like, I've thought this a couple times, like that we're more on the marketing side, communication side, or business coach side?
We're a little close to it. But I think it falls more on probably the business side. Because there are a lot of different pieces to it. Yeah. And more like sometimes we're like, here's a simple financial model you could use. Or go read this book about profit first or whatever it may be. Yeah. What about you?
I agree, because as I've been thinking about this, as we've refined it over the years, I think our marketing communications roadmap session is really, it's that communication piece too. Like, how am I communicating about my business in a way that people can engage and connect with? And that's just about having a good business. And so I like that aspect of what we do, that it's not just a creative marketing plan, that it really leans into a little bit of business coaching or organizational development along with it.
I mean, there's been somewhere where we're like, hey, you should really maybe refine this process a little bit, or put this in there to refine these different things, or an accountability chart. So yeah, I think that surprises people.
So who needs a marketing and communication roadmap?
I would say everybody, but we can't say everybody because everybody is not our client.
It's true. It's true.
We will stop you if you say that.
That's right. We stop ourselves with that too.
Yeah.
It's easy to drive down the street and be like, they need my thing. They need my thing. They need my thing. They may need it, but doesn't mean they're ready.
No, and there are some people who I definitely think can do it on their own.
For sure.
That have the tools and the whereabouts to do it. I think highly engaged, like people who want to move the needle, people who want to make an impact outside of their business, but like also an impact within their communities, wherever they are.
I agree.
I think that's an important piece.
Yeah. And we've said before too, like the people who resonate the most with these sessions with us or just getting a strategy together in general, like they're go-getters already. Mm-hmm. They're already winning like in so many ways. And they're really just looking for something to organize themselves and be permission giving to either take on something they weren't sure about and to let go of some things that they just don't need. And to like, again, that simplify piece.
I think there was one client where we knew enough of what he was doing and where he wanted to go that he was kind of really using it as a plan that he could at some point start himself, but then at some point hand off to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a piece of what makes the sessions unique with us is we do have a follow-up with mm-hmm. our sessions. So we've crafted together ways to follow up with our clients so that it's not just a like kind of flyby, right? Like here's your thing. Yeah. See you later. So we've crafted those in and we continue to change how we want to do those follow-ups and what they look like just to make them just more unique or more robust for each of our clients.
I think that's something that sets us a little bit apart too is we do want to work with people who move the needle. And like when we're seeing like, oh, mm-hmm. they implemented that whole first phase, like we're excited about it. Like we're telling people about it. And I think where it would be frustrating if it wasn't like mm-hmm. at that point.
Yeah.
So we do want to follow along.
Yes.
Sometimes you'll get unsolicited messages or emails after like, you know, like, hey, have you thought about this? Mm-hmm. So, which is fun.
Well, because we want to partner with people and have that relationship with them. Like you said, like we really want to see businesses and organizations that are doing great things succeed. Yeah. And that doesn't happen, in our opinion, with just a one-time thing. Mm-hmm. And so we do, I mean, I know you mentioned like we don't try and sell people on things, but if there is ever a formal follow-up, it is going to be like the one-on-one mentoring mm-hmm. that we do just to be supportive to those who need it. Yeah. And so we might make some recommendations like that, but like you said, our end goal isn't like to sell you on the next cool thing we have in our lineup, but we like to keep the partnership
on some of the cool things.
Yeah, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why we're here is to serve and help our clients. A couple of things I was thinking, just because I want people to have like a takeaway here too, right? One, like we've talked, a roadmap communication plan can be put together. I keep saying it wrong. A marketing and communication roadmap plan can be something you put together yourself. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of benefit to bringing somebody in because you can be too close. We also, to circle around on that, we've been doing this. Actually, we're in the middle of it for some of our services. We're creating a roadmap for ourselves. And Machaela, you literally leaned back one point. You're like, oh my gosh, I wish I wasn't so close to this. She's like, what would I say to myself if I was outside right now? So yeah, it can totally be done. Like we self-implement this ourselves, but it is helpful to bring somebody in, even if that's just like a friend who mm-hmm. can hear and see in a different way or take notes for you. Absolutely.
Or keep you like somewhat on track on your brainstorm pieces of it.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Or even to keep you accountable to setting the time up on your calendar.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's probably one of the hardest pieces is just be like, okay, we're going to block 4 hours here. Mm-hmm. 4 hours. I could do so much in 4 mm-hmm. hours. So I do think it is.
Yeah.
Crucial. And I think it's good too. We have Jenny who kind of like,
yes.
So we've talked about these in our weekly meetings and then we're actually like setting time mm-hmm. every week to kind of work on the map. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important.
Yes. So something else I wanted to cover a little bit as just a good takeaway would be some of the mistakes I think people make a lot within communications and marketing, which wouldn't be everybody, but just as you're thinking through this, if you're putting your strategy together or if you're coming to us to help put that together, one, that it has to be complicated, that you have to do all the things. And in a recent talk I just did, like one of my points was stop listening to the experts, like just knock it off. Because they're all out there like TikTok videos this and then Instagram that. And then you got to be in the reels. And then there's the newsletters. And then there's the blog. And then there's the website. And then there's the landing pages. And then there's the funnels. And then there's the this and the da, you know. And it's so easy to get stuck in that when you just need to simplify and think about what do I love? What do I hate? And what's actually going to move the needle? Mm-hmm. And what am I moving the needle towards? Do I know those things? Okay, now you're ready to start getting a map together. If you don't know those things, then that's the time to reach out to somebody to help you pull that out and clarify those, which is totally fine and natural. There's nothing wrong with not knowing those. So kind of I think one of the biggest mistakes is I must do all the things.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. We had a couple of notes because we want to make sure we cover some of our things here. I love this one. For organizations who are not ready to dive into a full marketing and communications roadmap, what would they be able to do? What's kind of those first steps? I think it's brainstorming. Just getting ideas out.
Yeah, too, especially if they're working a lot remotely. I think that is a good, I feel like we've had organizations who have used the actual session even as almost a team building experience too around it. And I think that's good. It's important. What was the question?
If they're not quite ready for that, for a full marketing communication roadmap.
Brainstorming probably.
Yeah. I think you can brainstorm on your own. And I think it goes back probably to that list again, right? Of what's working, not working, what you love, what you hate, and what are my goals. If you can get those things kind of brainstormed out, I think that starts sparking you in the right direction. And then we formally, when people aren't quite ready to engage in the full sessions that we do offer a one-on-one where people can book just one 90-minute session to start unpacking some of this, right? Or you can book a whole series of them, and then we can unpack different areas.
Or booking a brainstorm session. Right. You could do that on your own, but you could also do it where we can facilitate and help and get everyone, or just one person going in the direction they want to go.
Yes. I think that's important. And some of it too is just the accountability piece. So finding somebody who can be, another next step would be, can you find somebody who can be an accountability to you? Because you probably have a plan. It might not be documented, but you, like you said earlier, you probably have a plan of some kind in your head. So who can hold you accountable to those ideas? Or is there a virtual calendar that you could use to hold yourself accountable to your ideas, or a checklist, a virtual checklist you could use to hold yourself accountable?
Yeah.
I think those are good areas to be thinking about. This I also think is huge here. If you had to describe the ultimate impact of the roadmaps that we do, what do we think it would be? What is the ultimate impact?
I think it takes everything from in your head and puts it out there.
Yeah.
Gets everyone aligned, or even if it's just getting yourself aligned. I think that's helpful and probably the biggest.
The clarity and the, you can sigh with relief, I think. Okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to worry about these other things, and I'm going to double down on these things. I think there can be a lot of relief there. And then the ultimate impact is that you're successful, right?
Yeah, for
you're
sure.
Not spinning your wheels.
It reminds me of a client that was really hung up on how many Facebook followers and likes they had. And then at one point we're like, are people coming in the door? Yeah. Are you meeting your numbers? Yeah. Okay, then why does that number matter? It just had kind of got stuck in their head, this matters and I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
And that impact, because think of all of the time and energy and mental energy that could be wasted on that. Right?
Even resources,
totally.
Yeah.
You're paying someone to do your social media, or you're paying for some services, or your scheduler, or whatever. And it's not that you need to get off of it necessarily, but
that hyperfixation, which can happen to a lot of us on just I want 10,000. I'm going to get to 10,000. It's you're beating your head against this 10,000 when it doesn't actually matter right now. Yeah.
Or for others where they've disregarded something, right? They haven't thought of how important an aspect is. For us, I have been saying it over and over again, so I'll just say again, for us and for many clients, having an email newsletter is huge. Yeah. And I heard it a lot of times, but I was so stuck in all these other things. And now I realize, here's the thing I realize about it. I like it. I love doing it. Even though I'm not really a writer, I don't mind writing an email. Plus, I lean into tools that I need to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's so connecting. So I love it. I like it. And it moves the needle.
And you own it.
And I own it. It's ours. And I think like that's huge. But I was really stuck in other things for a long time and didn't start one.
Yeah.
So in doing some of our own reflecting on this and coaching others has helped us be able to coach ourselves in the middle of coaching others too. We're like, okay, I've said this 18 times to other people.
Yeah.
And I believe it.
And like finding like that balance too between the perfectionism and like not wanting things to go out the door. Like, let it go. There's probably going to be a mistake. We'll fix it later.
Yes.
So it's a lot better out there than it is just hanging out.
For sure.
In a draft.
So that's a little bit about getting strategies together around marketing communications. Is there anything else we feel like we need to cover to help people with this? As you're thinking about your new year in an area you want to focus on, I do think this is important for a lot of businesses to put this together, to get your marketing communications together. And don't forget the communication side of it. It's not all about, again, slick ad campaigns and things like that.
The engagement, I think, is huge.
For sure. So if that is something of interest, I would just highly encourage, maybe I think we should even just have some resources we can get out there on maybe how to do some of this on your own. Maybe that's something we can get out onto our blog and link to.
Like there's how to, like rules for a brainstorm, how to brainstorm.
Yeah.
Those are out there.
So we'll link to those just to help you as you're thinking through your beginning of the year and what you want that to look like, how you can do a brainstorm, some time blocking. That's huge as well with putting things like this together, like blocking the time. Once it's blocked, how to do the brainstorm, and then what you're trying to brainstorm about. So we'll have some resources like that linked as well in this podcast episode for you. And then, of course, we'd love to engage with people and see if it's the right fit. We do 8 questions that we send you when people inquire about a session just to see if it's a good fit, right? Before you dive in and make that investment, and before we dive in and make that investment into your organization or business. So if that's of interest, there is a link as well in the show notes that you can check out, and we'd love to visit that with you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, happy beginning of the year. Good luck with your roadmap.
Yeah.